Hey BookTube, I'm back for another video. As you see, I'm in my other setting, and if you can't tell, I did a little rearranging. On my community posts, I did post a video of an image of my room, how it looked when I was rearranging my shelves. And so I used to have three shelves in the back along this wall here, and they were the really much cheaper shelves that you can get at like a Walmart or something for fairly cheap. And I had them so stuffed with books that the shelves were slightly starting to bend. And actually, on one of them, like they only have little plastic pieces that you kind of stick into the side where they hold up the shelf. And one of them, the plastic piece just snapped right off. The shelf still held up, but it was full of a really heavy hardcovers, and so I thought I needed to it was high time to get some different shelves and rearrange them. So I bought these ones locally, used. Someone had them there, and they are much better. They are full six shelves instead of the usual five, and they're a lot taller and wider. And then the cheaper ones, I've put onto this wall here where I'm filming, and so you can't see them. And so then I basically doubled my shelf space in this room, which is quite nice. But anyways, that's not what this video is about. This video is about whether or not I should consider a book buying ban. And the reason for that is because, well, there's multiple reasons, and I'll go through them here. Uh, Recently, I've been enjoying what I'm reading, but recently I've been having a lot of difficult thinking about my reading, and it's partly inspired by BookTube. So BookTube, you're at fault here. Not in the sense that what I'm reading is I'm not enjoying what I'm reading, or that I'm feeling that the BookTube is making me feel negative about my reading. It's more of a positive that's turned into an existential question about my reading. And the positive is I want to read so many different things, and BookTube always seems to inspire different areas of that reading about what I want to read. For example, Christopher Russell has been reading about the Reformation, and a lot of the books he has talked about, I actually have on my shelf, right down on this shelf down here. A lot of that is Reformation books, and I have a lot of the same books, but I've not read any of them. But then also, Christopher Russell is doing a month of medieval reading, and I have a few of those books, but I also have an enormous shelf of medieval books right over here. A lot of medieval books, and then I have out of sight here on my right here, I have a bunch of medieval literature, and I've not read most of them. And that's the problem why I'm considering a book buying ban, is because I have so many books that I have not read and that I want to read, and that I feel like not so much an obligation, but I'm eager to get to these books, and it's almost nagging at me because I'm not a fast reader by any means, and so it takes me a decent amount of time to get through my books, and I usually try to keep my books limited to reading two at a time, and I'll get to that also later on, because that imposes more problems too, based on how I arrange my reading in that way. But yeah, I have, for example, part of my rearranging, I have this entire bookcase here, full of contemporary novels, like basically late 20th century and then 21st century novels, um, like historical fiction and contemporary literary fiction. And a lot of them look very interesting to me, and I've not read most of them. But then I also got books on culture and philosophy and all different kind of periods of history. Then I've got an entire shelf of books about religion and the history of religion, and I've got science fiction and a lot of and a ton of classics too. Like I got these Oxford classics, and I got penguins that range from here all the way to here, and then I've got a ton of classic mass markets up top there, and a lot more on top of these bookshelves here. And I've not read most of them, and I want to read most of them. And if you haven't, well, I haven't done a reading update for a while, but I've ever since I finished reading Aristotle in I think early March, I've put a pause onto my Western canon reading list, and mostly because I've been wanting to read other things. And right now, I'm at the Greek playwrights. I should be reading like Aeschylus and Sophocles and Euripides and Aristophanes. But I have not read any of them, and I can if I want to because they're next on my list, but I just haven't been doing it. And I want, and in order to progress in my Western canon reading list, like in order to get to Roman literature and move forward into early Christian literature and whatnot, um, I want to get past all these the previous authors. I want to read chronologically, and part of my idea was to read, say, um, historical fiction and history books that accompany that period that I'm reading in. And so I have a bunch of books on Greek history that I have not read. And but then there are all kinds of cultural books that I want to read. I can't really show you them because I'm filming right on that shelf here. Uh, but yeah, I got a ton of so cultural books. That would be books on, say, literature, books on the aspect of community and um, how humans are social beings, and books on books on the internet and whatnot. It's a ton of books that I want to read and get to, but I've been buying books way more than I can read them, and that's I've known that, and that doesn't surprise me, but uh, it and I've always justified that to myself by saying that I'm building the perfect library, and I am building the perfect library, but it kind of drives me nuts to think that it'll take me the rest of my life in order to even read my existing library. And I don't really like that idea. I want to get through the books that I have now and go from there. Like, I don't need any more books on medieval literature, or I don't need any more books on Reformation or Enlightenment history, or say World War II or anything like that, because I've gotten way more books that I've read that on that subject that I can just pick up and read now. So there is no reason why I should be buying any more books for a very long time. And yet I think it's well, I know for certain that it's going to be a struggle because of that annual semi or biannual charity sale that I like really like going to, and that I've recently hauled a massive haul. I did a 4-part video series on that haul, and and it's a ton of fun going used book shopping. I love the finds that you can get that you never expect to see, and I think that'd be a very hard thing to stop, um, because I do want to read all these books, and I've been fairly good with getting rid of books that I have bought in the past and that I don't end up uh, thinking I'm going to read, and so I get rid of them. Um, I've been pretty good that way. Um, and yeah, so that's a lot of conflicts in my reading. So I got a ton of physical books that I'm just not reading very fast. And then I'm going to introduce to you the little twist. Um, I always have two books going, and one of them is a physical book, so one that's from my shelf, but then I have books on my e-reader. This is my Kobo, and I have always a book on the go on my Kobo because when I go to work and I have a lunch break or a 15-minute break, I don't bring a physical book because I usually have a stack or something, and it's always way easier to pack a e-reader which fits very much into my lunch kit on um, a separate pocket, and it's very convenient to just haul this out and read this for a bit as I'm having a snack or as I'm eating lunch, not having to fumble with a physical book and turn pages. And so I'm always having a book on the go here, and this book is Why Love Hurts by Eva Illouz, and it's a book on sociology, and it's the third book on sociology that I've read this year, or that I'm reading this year. And the e-reader brings another whole bunch of issues because I have probably just as big, if not bigger, a library of ebooks as I do physical books. I don't know how many physical books I have in this room alone. I have not actually counted, though it might be interesting to give it a count. But I have probably 2,000 books on my e-reader, and I'm never going to read all of those in my lifetime, let alone all of my physical books. I mean, I hope I do, but if I keep acquiring books, books just seem to magnetize themselves towards me as I go thrifting or as I get cheap ebook deals because I'm not paying full price for ebooks, and it is it's remarkable how many books that I have to read and that I want to read. I'm buying ebooks because I want to read them. Um, so I don't I don't really know what to do about that because, well, because I would, for example, this year, I would love to just settle down with uh, Greek literature and just give that a read. But then there's a bunch of books on culture books, like there's Jonathan Haidt that I've talked about that I really want to read, and there's some classic novels that I've had on my TBR for upwards of 2 years that I've actually genuinely wanted to read, but I've always seemed to migrate to something else. The most famous example, or at least that I've mentioned before, at least on this channel, is The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a big brick of a thing, and I've been wanting to read that book for 2, 3 years already, and yet I've been so close, and yet I've always chosen another mammoth to read instead. So I don't really know how to go about with my reading. Do I want to just settle in with how I'm reading now, which is different veins of interest, and just bringing them, seeing how they go? For example, I was going to read a bunch of books on depression this year or mental health, or but I was leaving it open whether or not I wanted to read more books on that subject. And I think I only ended up reading two on that subject and moved on to other things. So I don't know. It's it's a conflict because it seems like my bookish eyes are bigger than my bookish stomach, more than I seem to be able to handle. And so I'm very ambitious with what I want to read, but when it comes to actual execution of what I end up reading, um, it's a lot slower and not as satisfying because I'm always looking at other books that I want to read and thinking, I wish I could read that right now. Not to say that the books I'm reading now are bad. It's just that it's a distraction that's becoming too much of a distraction, enough to create an existential crisis in my reading at this point. And so, um, do I do a book buying ban? Would I even be able to accomplish that? Um, or I don't really know what to do at this point. Do I continue my Western Canon reading list and just stick with that? Because I do every time I watch someone else talk about a classic that they've read, say they started reading a Greek playwright or they started reading a Roman author, I'm eager to join in. I want to read Greek and Roman authors. But then I look at my shelves and I find a history book that I really want to read. But then can't justify it because why would I read a Reformation book if I've got all these medieval books that I could read that would help set the stage for the Reformation book? And then it kind of twists my mind in that way because it seems like with my reading, I'm always extremely orderly where it has to go chronologically that way, even if there's not in a series. Like I should be able to read a Reformation book without having to read a medieval book. But it seems to me like I would get more out of the Reformation books if I read my medieval books before that, and I would get more out of my medieval books if I read my Roman books before that, and it just piles on all these different possibilities, and it gets quite overwhelming. Uh, and I would really like to sort this out, because it's not like my reading is dissatisfying. It just means that I don't have very much order to my reading, and um, I mean, I guess how I used to read uh, has changed too, because how I used to read was based on obligation, where I was like, well, I haven't read this book because it's been sitting on my shelves for a while, or I haven't read this author for quite some time. I should read another one of their books, and more of that was just kind of exploration and obligation. So that's why I read, say, Catcher in the Rye, or I read um, what would be another example? True Grit a number of years ago, where it's just a book on my shelf that's been sitting there for a while, and I feel like it's time that I get to it, and then I'll read it. Um, and I did that last year, and it wasn't very satisfying because not a lot of the books ended up hitting for me. Uh, and so this year, my philosophy has changed to reading books that I really think I would end up liking. And so, what I might end up doing is just continuing that theme, reading books that I'm almost certain that I'm going to love, or find at least very interesting, books that really excite me, and just keep on going for the rest of the year. And if that leads me back to the Western Canon reading list, then that'll be great. But if not, then I'll end up reading them next year. I don't know if you heard that, BookTube, but my doorbell rang, and I wanted to go check the doorbell, and guess what that was? It was a book purchase. I can't make this stuff up. It just happened right as I was making a video. So I might as well open this book uh, on camera here and just show you my problem. So the book that I purchased because it was on sale on Amazon is a Percival Everett novel called Percival Everett by Virgil Russell. Uh, and this is by Percival Everett. This is but like a meta book, as you can tell by the title. Percival Everett by Virgil Russell. And then, of course, the cover uh, kind of flips it around. I don't know. The cover kind of flips it around the names. Um, and the reason why I bought this novel or ordered this novel is because you never find Percival Everett uh, in the wild when I go used book shopping. I never find any of his books used. Probably because the author, yeah, Grey Wolf Press. It's like a minor press that he seems to have most of his novels published by, though his recent novel James was published mainstream, and I'm sure within a few years those books will start flooding the used bookstores because that book basically made the rounds in the past year or so, and a book like that usually ends up and usually ends up used, and I'll probably buy a copy then. But a book like this, you will just never find this one used. So I found it cheap on Amazon, and I couldn't practice self-control and say no. So here I have another novel that I can add to my uh, library of unread books. Because I don't think I'll be reading this one right away. I do have another book of his. I have Erasure that I got actually as a gift for my birthday. So I have two novels of his now, and that doesn't help what I'm trying to say in this video. Which seems like a whole lot of nothing, just a whole bunch of me complaining about all the books I have to read and that I don't have enough time to read them, or that I'm not fast enough to read them all. Because I know that if I had half the amount of speed that everyone else seems to have, where they work full time and they have families and jobs and obligations, and yet they're reading like 2, 3 novels a week. Um, and here I am probably reading, what, a book every 2 weeks, give or take. Because even though I have two books going on at the same time, uh, I don't read very fast during my lunch breaks, and in the mornings uh, I usually get a good chunk of a novel done, or a book done, but it um, doesn't get me very fast throughout the week. Like, for example, reading on the weekends, I probably get 3 times as much reading done than I would during a full week. And it's not because of lack of reading time. It's because I'm dedicating myself to reading as much as I can. Um, and the problem is too is that in a few uh, in a few months I'll be uh, changing courses in what I end up actually doing. So I work a full-time job now, but I'll be moving on to something else, um, to a different career that I want to actually pursue, and that'll be taking a lot of my free time. Uh, so it won't be just, like the usual 9 to 5, and then you're at home and you got some free time. It'll for me it'll be 9 to 5, and then there'll be further obligations into uh, if you want to stay afloat and to succeed in the job that I'm doing. So um, that's not going to help my reading time at all. So maybe the solution here is to just be aggressive with my reading time, or aggressive with my free time, and make it purely reading time instead of um, other things, which might mean, say, lesser videos. That might also mean less watching BookTube. Uh, though I don't think I could stop watching BookTube fully, because I do like, usually when I'm making my lunch, and I'm eating a meal when I'm at home, I usually like to watch BookTube at that point, and so um, that beats having to fiddle around with a book, or be distracted with a book while I'm trying to eat, because even though I eat and read during work, it's not always the most ideal when it comes to actually bearing down on a book, because you're always going to be distracted to some extent. Uh, but yeah, that's just a rambly video of some um, some questions with my reading. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't want this video to be too long. I'm over 20 minutes now, so I think I'll leave it at that. Tell me how you struggle with your reading, or how you've figured out your reading. Like, do you have a scheduled reading time? Um, are you satisfied with how fast you read, or with how many books you get through? Are you okay with just having a library full of unread books? Uh, I like to see it. I like to consider it as like a library full of possibilities, and I like to have those possibilities there, but sometimes it can be quite overwhelming. And especially when go through every single shelf, I'm like, I want to read that book, and I want to read that book, and I want to read this one, and I really want to read this one, but I can't. Like, if I do that with all my shelves, that's a year's worth of reading right there. And and surely might if I made that into some huge, like, definitive list of books I'm going to read this year, I'm going to want to change it, because my reading is going to take me elsewhere. And I've come to like the idea of reading in little veins of things. So recently I read a Virginia Woolf novel, and I would like to read some more Virginia Woolf. Um, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's just some conflicts with my reading. Should I do a book ban? Have you tried a book ban? Has it worked before? I have tried book bans in the past, and have not succeeded, obviously, uh, especially when I'm such a slow reader. So I'm not sure how I would characterize a book ban, or how I would measure that, other than just practicing self-control, and stop ordering books online when they're cheaper, uh, or when they're on sale. Um, but yeah, that'll be it for me, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.